Welcome to the Autonomous Brief Cybersecurity Edition. I'm Synthia Cognita.
And I'm Felix Logis. We've got quite the lineup of stories today, from the evolving world of SOC automation to some concerning developments in IP volatility.
That's right, Felix. And speaking of SOC automation, we've got an interesting perspective from Tim Malcolm-Vetter, who suggests we might be overthinking our approach to automation.
Indeed, according to Malcolm-Vetter, we can actually automate significant portions of SOC work without jumping straight to generative AI. He's proposing something quite innovative using acceptable quality limits, or AQL, from the manufacturing industry.
That's fascinating. It's like taking a proven quality control framework and applying it to cybersecurity. But let's not forget Ali Mellon's take on this. She's been talking about the broader picture of SecOps evolution.
Yes, and Mellon brings quite the credentials to this discussion. With experience from MIT and advising Fortune 500 CISO, she's seeing the intersection of automation, AI, and data management from multiple angles.
Speaking of security challenges, we need to talk about this alarming trend in IP volatility. It's becoming a real headache for organizations using cloud services.
Right you are. The article on IP volatility points out that when IP addresses can change or be reassigned in cloud environments, it creates serious security risks, especially for services that rely on static IPs for their security configurations.
It's like trying to secure your house when the address keeps changing, isn't it? And other people might end up with your old address.
That's a great analogy, and it's particularly concerning when you consider how many organizations are moving to cloud services and microservices architectures.
On a more positive note, I was intrigued by this new security firm that's turning their bias into a superpower. Credible Security seems to be taking a really fresh approach.
They certainly are. The founders Josh Yava, Kim Burton, and Jessica Walters are leveraging their diverse backgrounds to help growing companies turn trust into a strategic advantage. It's quite a departure from the typical compliance-focused approach.
And speaking of fresh approaches, have you seen the latest stats on banking fraud? The numbers are pretty staggering.
They certainly are. According to the banking fraud article, U.S. fraud losses are expected to hit $40 billion by 2027. And what's really concerning is how criminals are leveraging new technologies like generative AI.
That's right, and it's not just the traditional threats anymore. We're seeing sophisticated synthetic identity fraud and account takeovers becoming more prevalent.
Which brings us to an interesting point about penetration testing. The field has evolved significantly since its inception in 1967.
Oh, that's a great historical perspective. And now we're seeing things like PTAS penetration testing as a service and the use of generative AI in testing scenarios.
Exactly. Though it's worth noting that while these tools make testing more efficient, they're also being adopted by cyber criminals. It's creating quite the arms race in the cybersecurity world.
And that's why proper incident response is so crucial. I see there's a new version of the Incident Response Program PAC that's just been announced version 1.5.
Yes, and it couldn't come at a better time. With all these evolving threats, having a solid incident response framework is more important than ever.
You know what's interesting? Even as we're talking about all these sophisticated threats and responses, there's still a huge demand for basic security tools like VPNs.
True, and the latest roundup of free VPNs for 2025 shows how this market is evolving, though I'd caution our viewers to be very careful with free VPN services.
Absolutely. As the saying goes, if you're not paying for the product, you might be the product. But there are some reputable options out there, like Proton VPN's free tier.
Well, Cynthia, we've covered quite a lot of ground today. From SOC automation to VPNs, it's clear that the cybersecurity landscape continues to evolve at a rapid pace.
It certainly does, Felix. And we'll be here to keep our viewers informed about all these developments. That's all for today's episode of the Autonomous Brief Cybersecurity Edition. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, stay secure.